Guten Morgen, guten Tag, guten Abend. Jetzt haben wir Kapitel 21. Let's do chapter 21, Extended Adjective Constructions. These are pretty fun and very characteristically German and used quite extensively in scholarly writing, so it'll be very good for you to get these into your toolkit. So let's look at using participles as adjectives. Gekocht is a past participle, and it can also be used as an adjective, very similar to the way we do it in English. So, eine gekochte Kartoffel is a boiled potato. Gekocht, kochen can mean either to cook or to boil, same thing. So, cook or boil, both of those. So, eine gekochte Kartoffel, a boiled potato. So, gekocht is a past participle. And we decided that we want to use it as an adjective, so that's why there's also this adjective ending on it. So it's just article, adjective, noun. So that's a normal situation. It's a noun with an adjective before it. Just like in English, a boiled potato, we've got a noun. It's got an adjective. That adjective happens to be a past participle because you can do that with past participles. But the translation is very parallel to English. A boiled potato, a boiled potato. So that's like the first version, but maybe we can make it a little more complicated and use extended adjective constructions that are characteristic in German, especially in academic writing. So, eine in Wasser gekochte Kartoffel, a potato boiled in water. So what's happening here is what we're saying literally, word for word, is an in water boiled potato. So in Wasser gekochte, it's the same as the first one, eine gekochte Kartoffel, but we've added in Wasser because we want to describe it a little more. We're adding a detail here, boiled in water, right? So in a certain sense, in Wasser is sort of describing gekocht. In Wasser is adding more details to gekocht. So that's why they're a unit. They belong together. So for a German speaker, this is all one phrase, in Wasser gekochte. And so it all sort of belongs together. But when you translate that literally into English word for word, it's an in water boiled potato. And we don't say that in English. Even without the hyphens, we wouldn't say it, right? And so sometimes you have to find a different way to say it. And so often that will end up being a potato boiled in water. So it just comes after. And you could also say a potato that is boiled in water. You could add that is and make a whole relative clause out of it. So the longer this gets, the more you have to move it from where it is originally and then maybe rephrase it sometimes. So let's look at a slightly longer version. We're just going to add one word, heißem. Eine in heißem Wasser gekochte Kartoffel. A potato boiled in hot water. So we're just adding more details, and it's still seen as a unit. And in hot water boiled potato. So in hot water boiled is considered basically one adjective. It's the in hot water is just describing boiled further, so it's considered just one adjective construction. So, of course, you can't say an in hot water boiled potato in English, so you have to say a potato boiled in hot water or a potato that is boiled in hot water. And then we have eine in heißem Wasser gekochte und dann gegessene Kartoffel. So we can add even more and make it even longer. That would be a potato boiled in hot water and then eaten. So a potato, so eine and Kartoffel belong together. That's a potato. But the longer this extended adjective construction gets, the more confusing it is, the fact that eine is very far away, the article is very far away from its noun, right? So that's why it's important to be able to recognize these. We have to say a potato, boiled in hot water, and then eaten. So when you translate it, the word order shifts pretty dramatically when you put it back together in the English version. So you could also say a potato that is boiled in hot water and then eaten. So then you've changed this whole extended adjective construction into into a relative clause. That is, right? And then if we wanted to, just to show you what is happening exactly word for word, is and in hot water boiled and then eaten potato. So in hot water boiled and then eaten is like one big adjective, right? So we have two past participles, but it's like one adjective that describes Kartoffel. Yeah. So those are all past participles. We're using past participles, but you can also do it with present participles. So der singende Vogel is the singing bird. Singend, singing. And then singend is the singing. And then because it's an adjective now, we're going to use the ending. Der singende Vogel, the singing bird. But then we have der im Baum singende Vogel, the bird singing in the tree, which is actually the in the tree singing bird, right? The in the tree singing bird. So yeah, it's like might be a little confusing when you get to an article, der, and then you see like this prepositional phrase coming after, and you're like, and you're expecting some noun to come after the article, but it comes later, so it's being interrupted by this adjective. So there's that, and then der oben im Baum singende Vogel, the bird singing in the tree up there. I just added an adverb, oben, up there or above. So you could say it's the above in the tree singing bird, the above in the tree singing bird, all one thing. And then the better translation, of course, would be the bird singing in the tree up there, or above or up there, either. So these are the extended adjective constructions. Those were some simple examples, and then we can get to some more complicated ones. So when you have participles used as adjectives, this happens pretty often, and they can be modified further. So the resulting extended adjective constructions, they often, we had several with prepositional phrases, right? The boiled in hot water prepositional phrases. They come before the noun, they modify, and may be one of several adjectives in a series. So you can add many different modifiers to give more details. As a result of extended adjective constructions, the limiting words, der and ein words, so the articles, appear to the untrained eye to have become disconnected from the noun that they introduce. So the article der or ein is so far away from the noun that sometimes it's hard to recognize what noun it belongs to. Consider the following examples in which the extended adjective constructions are highlighted. Yeah, so these are similar to the ones we were just looking at. Die in New York wohnenden Menschen, the people living in New York, which is basically the in New York living people, the people living in New York. Die seit Jahren in New York wohnenden Menschen, so we've just added seit Jahren to add more details. And so if you, whenever you wonder what order things go in, it's time, manner, place. So time, seit Jahren is a time, the amount of time, and then in New York is a place. So time, manner, place. So the reason seit Jahren is now coming first is because it's a time, and then place after. So the people who have been living in New York for years, a super literal translation would be the 4 years in New York living people, right? And then dieses in Deutschland gebaute Flugzeug, this airplane which was built in Germany. So now we have, in both of these last two, we have a relative clause instead of, if it's short enough like this, like living, we didn't make the people living in New York, we didn't make a relative clause because it's short enough and it doesn't get too clunky. But the more you add, the more you have to put it into a relative clause. So this airplane, which was built in Germany, and the sentence goes on, right? So in Deutschland gebaut is like the whole adjective phrase. Eine für diesen Baustil charakteristische Eigenschaft, a feature that is characteristic for this building style. So Eigenschaft is feature. A for this building style characteristic feature. Yeah. So of course it's been changed into a relative clause in the translation. Yeah. And then we have these examples again. So the article and its noun are separated by an extended adjective construction. So eine, the article, Eigenschaft, the noun, they're separated by this extended adjective construction. The adjectives or participles immediately preceding the nouns are modified themselves by prepositional phrases. So there's always at least one like real adjective involved, right? Participles are real adjectives. So we have the adjectives here: wohnen, wohnen, gebaut, charakteristisch. Those are proper adjectives. But then when you add, prepositional phrases or other things, they will come before the adjective. And then after translating the article or der word, so dieses, that's a der word, right? Die, eine, all those articles, you cannot proceed with a prepositional phrase because then it would sound like you were word for word translating this very uniquely German construction, right? So you have to first translate the noun modified. So you have the article, and then you have to go and grab the noun and put it back with its article. So a feature, and then you can go about translating that. Extended adjective construction usually as a relative clause. So translate the adjective or participle next, often as a relative clause, followed by all the other modifiers grouped in meaningful units. So as a general rule, translate the modifier units from left to right, as you would expect, and then begin the participle and work back to the first modifier following the article. Yeah. So then we have recognizing them, right? They are common in journalistic and expository writing. So the thing is, they sound really complex to English speakers, but to Germans, this is they're just so used to them that they are used in speech once in a while as well. And then it's a marker of register, though. In the more serious a text wants to sound, the more likely it is to use these, and the longer they're likelier to be. So yeah, if you are reading a text by someone who wants to sound very smart, they're going to use these a lot. So direct translations into English and sometimes even immediate comprehension are difficult in all but the shortest extended adjective constructions. Yeah, the shortest ones are all right, but then the longer they get, the more you have to pay attention. Keep your eyes open. At any time a limiting word, which is der ein, anytime an article is followed by a preposition or another limiting word instead of the noun that it introduces. So anytime you see an article and the noun is way far away, that's an extended adjective construction. So we can look at some examples with limiting adjective, which means article, ein word, der word, those are articles, and then alle, viele, all or many, numbers, and others. So just words that would normally come before nouns to limit them, as in to describe them in a limiting way, followed by a preposition instead of a noun, as in all the examples above. So alle noch zu Hause bei den Eltern lebenden Studenten. All students. So you see, you can have the word all before students, and they say limiting. It's like it just means further specifying which students, right? So alle meaning all, and then Studenten is here at the end. So it's like all, and then go back and grab the noun, like all what? All students. So the students actually belongs to alle, right? So you have to say all, and then you have to go back and grab Studenten and say all students. And then you look at the rest of it and you say noch zu Hause bei den Eltern lebenden. So we want to grab our adjective. The last part right before that noun is going to be the adjective, often a participle. In this case, it's a present participle, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a normal adjective. But this is a present participle. So we have all students, and then we know that this is living. So we want to say all students living still at home with their parents. So it would be all students living still at home with their parents. And it's still, if you leave out the who are and you're not using a relative clause, it sounds a little bit like a German, so and not so much like a native English speaker. So it just depends. But if you translate the whole thing without the relative clause, and it sounds not like a native English speaker, then add in. And you're always safe to add in the relative clause. It's always optional. So when in doubt, you can make the relative clause happen with that is or who, that are, who is. So in that case, we have it here. Zwei mit Hilfe eines Pfadfinders die Straße überquerende alte Damen. So two, it's numbers, right? Because you could say die Damen, that would be like the ladies, but then zwei Damen. So it works like an article, right? So two ladies, or alte Damen, so two old ladies. Two old ladies. And then we have to look at mit Hilfe eines Pfadfinders die Straße überquerende. So here's our present participle, crossing. So two old ladies crossing, überquerende, crossing what? The street, crossing the street with the help of a Boy Scout. Yeah. So then we have limiting adjective followed by another limiting adjective or pronoun. So when it looks like you have like an article and then a possessive, and then you wouldn't have that normally. Like an article needs a noun after it, and a possessive needs a noun after it. So you can tell that there's like a noun missing here. So die unser Leben beherrschenden Kräfte, the forces controlling our lives. So it's like the forces, die Kräfte, and then the forces, and then beherrschend, controlling. So the forces controlling our lives, the controlling our lives forces, right? So this one's pretty short, so you don't have to necessarily do the relative clause. You could say the forces that are controlling our lives, and that's also fine. Or you can leave it out, the forces controlling our lives. Ein sich täglich erweiterndes Gebiet, a field which is being extended daily. Erweitern is to extend, and then we've got that D on there to make the present participle, and then we've got an ES, that's an adjective ending because it's now an adjective. So you see ein, and then you see like stuff that is not a noun at all, and then finally the noun. So you realize that the article has been separated from its noun. So you say a, and then you go grab the noun, field, and then you look at sich täglich erweiternd. So every day extending itself. It's a reflexive. It's extending itself, but it's an implied passive, right? It's being extending itself. So you end up with a field that is being extended daily, or which, either way. And then imagine if you don't have that relative clause, it would be a field being extended daily, which I think is all right as well. It's short enough. So as soon as you recognize an extended adjective construction, place an opening bracket after the limiting adjective. So die is the limiting adjective, as in the article, just whatever it could be. We had zwei, alle, zwei, die, ein, all those things. And so then find the noun modified. So this is, when I had those translations before with all the hyphens between the words, is to show you that it's one unit, right? And so one way to think about this as well is to put brackets around the extended adjective construction so that you can then see that it's die Universität. See how it's just die, and then it's just an adjective construction. We're going to like leave it alone for now so that we recognize that die actually belongs to Universität Heidelberg. That way we can sort of see our adjective phrase or adjective construction hanging out in isolation. It's a little island, and that way we can see what's happening in it a little better. And then the words within the brackets constitute an extended adjective and modify Universität Heidelberg. So you could put any adjective here, right? You could say, you just replace all of this with alt, die alte Universität Heidelberg, the old University Heidelberg or something. Any adjective could go in there, and it would be the same construction, right? So begin with the last word, of course, the in the year 1386 founded University of Heidelberg, right? But we want to say the University of Heidelberg, and then we're going to start with this last word, which is the adjective, the proper adjective, and then we're going to continue on with the translation. So the University of Heidelberg, And then you can either use, in this case, we are going to use the relative clause. So we're going to say which was. The reason we're doing was is because this is a past participle and not a present participle. So which was founded, gegründet, which was founded. And then we go back towards, we go back to whatever else we have left in the year 1386. Yeah. If you translate by using relative clause, so if you are going to add in the which was or that is or whatever, put the clause into the present or the past tense depending on the context of the whole sentence. So the reason we said which was here is because gegründet is a past participle, and 1386 was quite a long time ago. I think that qualifies as the past. So usually present participles will call for the present tense, right? And then the past participles for the past tense. With adjectives, only the context is a reliable guide. Yeah, so when we're dealing with participles, gegründet or gründend would be the present participle. Participles have time. They can either be present or past. So that tells you what you're going to do with the which was or that was, that is or that was. So that tells you that. But then if it's just a regular adjective, not a participle, regular adjectives aren't in present or past. They're just adjectives. So because of that, you'll just have to know from whatever else is going on in the sentence, whether you want to make your relative clause with the past tense or the present. So, das U-Boot versenkte den mit Waffen und Treibstoff beladenen Dampfer. The submarine, das U-Boot, the submarine, versenkte den, and then steamer is Dampfer. So you have to get Dampfer and bring it back over. That's why these four, das U-Boot versenkte den, we translated that 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. These first four words we translated the same order as in German and in English, right? But then to translate the next word, we're going to get number 5 over here, which is Dampfer. So number 5 is moved over here. And then mit Waffen und Treibstoff beladen, and then the extra en is just an adjective ending. So which was loaded with arms and fuel. So with arms, meaning weapons, with weapons, and fuel loaded. So beladen means loaded. So we're going to say Dampfer, we've translated as number 5. And then we're going to, this part with the which was, that is, that's not, you have to add that in. That's not in there already, right? So that's added in out of nowhere. And then loaded. So number 6 that we translated is loaded. So Dampfer, steamer, and then these don't count because they weren't there already. And then the next one, loaded. And then with arms and fuel, this is all one prepositional phrase. So number 7, the last one, is that prepositional phrase that we say at the end. Yeah. So here are further examples. Das auf diesem Wege entdeckte Land. The country that was discovered in this way. It's like the, in this way, discovered country. So we translate first, das is the, and then we think, what noun even belongs with this, right? And that's Land. So the country that was, we added in out of nowhere, and then discovered in this way. Yeah. Unser ausländischer Freund kennt die in diesem Lande herrschenden Zustände. Our foreign friend, that's the same, our foreign friend, kennt, knows, that's the same. Die, going to be the for something plural. And then we look and we see this prepositional phrase and we're like, what happened to the noun? The noun's all the way at the end. Zustände, conditions. So the conditions. And then herrschend means sort of dominate. So it's sort of like saying the predominant conditions, or the conditions that are most noticeable. So that exists is like a, it's all right. It's a similar translation, but that are dominating, you could say, in this country. Yeah. So same thing. We have the conditions, and then that exist is like herrschend, and then in diesem Lande we go back to that. Mein Mitarbeiter vollendete die im letzten Jahr von mir begonnene Arbeit. My coworker completed the work that I started last year. Mein Mitarbeiter, my coworker. And then vollendete, completed. And then you see die followed by prepositional phrase. So that means that you go to the end of this whole phrase to find that Arbeit actually belongs to die. So you say the work, and then im letzten Jahr von mir begonnen was in the last year begun by me, right? So that work that I started last year, or the work that was begun by me in the past year. Yeah, so the second one is more literal. That was begun by me. Von mir begonnen, begun by me. Dieser von den alten Griechen geschaffenen Grundgedanken der heutigen Atomphysik. So these basic ideas of modern atomic physics, which were developed by the ancient Greeks. So it's like these, by the ancient Greeks, developed basic ideas of modern atomic physics. So this one's a little more complicated because you end up having the relative clause a little bit farther away. But just because of this, we have a genitive construction here. But it's basically, it's the same principle. These basic ideas, that's how it is. These basic ideas of modern atomic physics. So Grundgedanken der heutigen Atomphysik, that all belongs together. It's just this genitive here belongs with Grundgedanken, right? Basic ideas of modern atomic physics. So that all belongs together. So these basic ideas of modern atomic physics, and then we're going to go back and get this extended adjective construction that describes this thing we just translated, right? So which were we've added in, and then developed, geschaffen is also created or developed. So created or developed by the ancient Greeks. Yeah. Okay. So then we have those are the same ones. Translations of past participles in extended adjective constructions may be rendered using either an active or passive verb construction. So you here that was this one. So that I started, sometimes it sounds better, or was begun by me, that's a passive. So sometimes you'll have choices which give the same meaning. Passive constructions that are awkward in English can be rendered actively without changing the meaning. Yeah. So technically, the more exact translation is the passive, von mir begonnen. But sometimes if it sounds awkward, because German likes the passive more than English does, so feel free to put it into the active as long as the meaning is retained. And then note that the entire noun unit, for example, diese Grundgedanken der heutigen Atomphysik should be translated before you go back to the extended adjective. So that's what we did a moment ago. So we don't want to break it up because that can lead to confusion. And then, if it's totally not clear where you should be going, just try to put brackets around things that seem to belong together. So now we have some exercises for you to do. Some will have shorter and some longer extended adjective constructions. So here I have some shorter ones. Hopefully these ones are relatively clear what's going on. And then we have a couple of sentences from Kafka's Das Urteil, which is a great novella by Kafka. And of course, Kafka loved these extended adjective constructions. And so hopefully those will be fun for you to translate. And in your free time, I encourage you to read Das Urteil by Kafka, The Judgment. It is a wonderful piece of world literature. So wir sehen uns im nächsten Video. Bis bald. Tschüss.